Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, and more. I am Dr. Marissa, your hashtag positively opinionated host. And, I'm here because I want to balance out all the bad news that's so readily available out there with some good news and good people and good guests and good series. And this is Wednesday because you do see Dr. Tiffanie Tate with us today. That means it's time for Doctors in the House with Dr. Marissa and
Dr. Tiffanie Tate.
She's a U.S. Navy veteran, a published author, and retired OBGYN from Compton, California. She's a playwright, singer, poet, songwriter, and more. Dr. Tiffanie is the published author of many books. I'm not going to say several anymore. Many books, including an important children's book called Bad Touching. Please welcome back to my studio, Dr. Tiffanie Tate.
Always a pleasure to be here, especially today.
Always a pleasure to have you. And we're going to start the way we normally do. This is a breakfast with your co-hosts, which means we're going to take a bite of my gratitude sandwich, top of the bun, things outside of ourselves that we're grateful for, bottom of the bun, things that we are grateful for that are inside of us. That's, I call appreciation. And if you are streaming along, I see eyeballs rolling into the studio now. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We've got Trevor Ricketts here. Welcome to the show. And play along with us and have a little breakfast by putting your gratitudes in the chat. And we'll put them up on the screen as they come up. What are you grateful for, Dr. Tiffanie?
Well, I live in the Inland Empire, specifically in Riverside, and anyone in the Inland Empire knows that we had a big fire here on Sunday, and I did have to evacuate. I could see the fire from my front yard and from my backyard, and I was witness to a couple houses burning down. And I stood on my balcony saying, this hasn't got to be false. And a helicopter was actually flying over my house, dumping water on my neighbor's yard. And I'm very grateful that they were able to quench the fires and prevent it from spreading to my house. So I am actually very grateful for having a roof over my head and for being able to move back into my home.
Wow, that definitely deserves one of these. I'm very grateful that you're okay.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's a little scary, huh?
Oh, it was very scary because a lot of times you watch on the news and you're like, well, why do people stay? Why do people stay? Because you're actually in denial. You're like, no, this can't be real. And you're like, no, do I really need to pack? Well, I think they're going to put it out. And when the winds are blowing those breezes, those California winds are blowing, and you're watching the wind seed the fire, and the fire is jumping from here to there. You're like, but no, it looks like they're going to put it out. It's almost out. So maybe I can stay. Maybe I don't need to grab anything. And it's like, okay, well, what do I need to grab? I'm like, okay, my mom passed away in 2013. I'm going to grab that photo. But okay, my cousin is calling me. She's like, I see your house on TV. I'm like, wait, what?
Wow.
Grab your passports because we have a trip coming up. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in the safe. I'm going to grab the passport, grab your important documents. But I'm like, but wait, they're going to put it out. And then the fire department is driving down saying, evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. And I'm like, wait, I don't want to evacuate. My daughter's like, okay, Mom, I think I have to go. And then I'm like, okay, well, the police is blocking the street, not letting all the looky-loos down. And then I go down and I talk to CAL FIRE. I'm like, do we really need to evacuate? Like, yes, miss, you really need to evacuate. I'm like, this is
Wow.
real because you're in denial
Right,
and you
right,
don't
right.
really want it to happen. And you're like, but they're putting it out. I see them stopping it. But then you see the fire jumping from house to house, and you see it jumping on a rooftop here and burning this house. And you see that house burning down, but you see it skipped over that house. And you're like, but my house is okay, but it's across the street. And you're like, well, this street is okay. And they're like, okay, but the winds are blowing and it can easily blow over across the street because the winds are blowing and they can't guarantee that it's not going to blow into your house. So they're like, I can't guarantee what's going to happen. But then there's also another fire in Corona and their resources are already spread thin. So no, miss, you need to evacuate. So we packed up our stuff.
Wow. Wow. That's a giant gratitude.
Mhm.
And it's stuff like that that definitely gives you a pause for gratitude and appreciation in life.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that reminder. So I'm grateful that I got to meet, after 30 years, a cousin of mine in Hong Kong. And 2 weeks later, she died.
Mhm.
So, yeah, she and her husband took us out for dim sum. She was one of the kids of the brothers that went back into China after communism came in and got trapped. She was sent to a labor camp when she was 14. Tough life. She got out to Hong Kong. Her husband, lovely man, called me last week, today, and said, he was crying and they've been married 52 years. And he was the one that had health issues. She was
Mhm.
fine, woke up, felt really hot, lost her speech, collapsed, never regained consciousness. So in 2 weeks. And so 76, not that far, not that old. And it's like the fire. It's one of those things that makes you stop and go, life is short. We don't know how long our dash is. We don't know what's going to happen, right?
Oh,
So every day, I live every single day as if it were my last. And I people say that, but I honestly do, sometimes to the detriment of, no, I'm going to have that or I'm going to get that because I may not be here tomorrow. But most of the time, it's a healthy, sense of time. So, wow. Well, I'm really glad you're good and okay. I'm really glad that I got to meet my cousin. I know I'll see her again in heaven. We've got compliments here. I'm grateful for compliments that we get from our streamers. Beautiful eyes and beautiful voices. So he's obviously been with us for a while. He knows that we will break into song at any at any moment. Thank you for the heart. Someone just gave us a heart as well. Um, Dr. Tiffanie, any more gratitudes before we go to appreciation?
yes. And I think that with what you said, I am just grateful for the fact that no one lost their lives
Mhm.
due to the fires because things can be replaced. Some things may be irreplaceable as far as photos, but documents and things like that, and material possessions. But lives cannot. Those are irreplaceable. And like you had the chance to meet your cousin, I think that that's a valuable, beautiful experience. But I am grateful for, like you said, every day of living, and every day is a day of Thanksgiving. So glory to God. I'm thankful that everybody is still here and in the land of the living.
Yeah. And I appreciate, I'm going to go to the bottom of the bun. I appreciate that I'm not afraid to die. And that sounds a little weird, But one of the reasons why I'm happy a lot is I don't live in fear. So I spell fear future events already ruined. Because people say, "Oh, aren't you scared? Weren't you scared going into China? You could have been arrested if you said the wrong thing, and and or aren't you afraid when you fly? Or aren't you afraid?" And it's like I don't live in fear. Now I'm not stupid, like my dad will say, "Trust in God, but lock your car." But I don't live with worst case scenario, and I appreciate that about myself. I know where I'm going. I came out of love. I'm going back into love. I have nothing to fear. I know that when people die, you miss them, and that's real, but there's nothing to be afraid of. That's my BS belief system that works for me.
It's interesting that you said that, because earlier this month, I had the privilege of teaching Bible study for the women's ministry at church, and my lesson was faith over fear. And I came with coming out of the books of Jonah and Esther, because they both had issues with fear and faith. And I spoke on the mnemonic, fear, false evidence appearing real. And I thought that that was good. And so my thing is that I'm not afraid to step up within me and teach and do what is necessary.
Fantastic. And that's it for breakfast. We're going to, modify. Sometimes we'll do 8 total. I think we did 8 total, but I would encourage you all to start your day with a bite of the gratitude sandwich, whether you're here with me every weekday morning or whether you're on your own. It is a wonderful good life habit, a blisscipline, #blisscipline, as I've stolen from my big brother, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, and it keeps us sandwiching our days in the most positive way. So thanks for joining us for breakfast. And I promise if you do make it a good life habit for 28 days, you're going to have an amazing shift. And it doesn't cost you anything. Before you go to bed is when you do the appreciation. So you're not thinking about who done you wrong or beating up on yourself and shooting on yourself. Instead, you are loving yourself. And I promise that when you're in that mode, you'll sleep better too. So anybody who has sleep issues, try that before you take something that has a side effect or a main effect. All righty. And it is time for... what's the topic of the day? Oh, wait, I got to read this because I thought I was pretty kind of cute with the words. We are one, or are we? With more and more apparent divisions we see on the news /olds, except for my show, have we forgotten how to be considerate, empathetic? Are we apathetic, or are we just plain pathetic?
Yes, and yes. All of the above.
So why are we talking about this, Dr. Tiffanie?
Well, I decided to talk about this subject because I felt that we needed a little bit more love in this world. And it's not just about politics, because when it comes to politics, bah humbug. But I think that when it comes to just caring about our fellow human being, we just need more consideration. And if you look at politics, there's a lot of mudslinging and name calling. And I'm not even going to mention any names when it comes to politics. But I think a certain individual has even campaigned for their other person when they were like, we don't need a old person running, and now a younger person is running. And so I think that they've advertised for the other person, because now they have basically ran the campaign for the other person. So that's all I'll say for that. And I'm
And
moving.
isn't it cool, for those of you who weren't here last week, that my co-host actually spoke with, had a picture taken with the potential, hopefully, future president of the United States. That is so cool, right? Because you missed a week because she was in, where were you? Texas? No.
I was in Dallas, Texas. I didn't get a chance to. She spoke at our convention, but I didn't get a chance to speak with her and have my picture taken with her yet. That will
Okay.
happen. That's
Okay.
coming.
All
I
right.
promise you that's coming. But I
Yeah.
did do all that with President Biden.
Right.
But it's coming with her, to be announced. I promise
But
you.
isn't that cool? I mean, that whole situation, and we're not going to talk about politics because that's one of the rules of the show.
Yeah.
But just as far as, I'll just say, it's a good sign for our country when we've seen a lot of signs where it looks like we're going backwards. This is a sign that looks like we're going forwards. So I'll just say that.
But and then the irony, I'm going to point out one more irony when we talk about being empathetic, is that you have one party who spews their own party gets shot by a member of their own party, and that party is pro-guns, and then it's the other party's fault. So I'm like, okay, when that other party is anti-guns and they want gun regulation and they want peace, but it's still their fault. That's like saying, okay, I told you, you have 2 children, and you're like, okay, don't go to the party, stay home and do your homework, and don't go out and don't go to the party. But that child goes out to the party, misbehaves, and gets hurt for going out. But then it's the parent's fault for that child going out and not listening to that parent. It just doesn't make sense. Either way, let's move on.
I'm going to get people pinging me going, I thought you weren't talking about politics, and she is definitely talking about politics.
Yes. Let's move on. I just don't want to. I don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Yeah, it's difficult.
It's just the irony of it all.
Not talk about it, but
yeah.
But we are. I mean, as much as even myself personally have a difficult time, and I put it on my profile. You know, I don't want to come home and argue when and not just arguing, but just disagreeing on something as fundamental as your BS belief systems about politics and who's a good leader and who's not a good leader. I just don't want to bring that home. But I've had to also expand my ability to practice what I teach on this, and not, 1, talk about politics, and 2, malign anyone. And a case in point, one of your co-hosts, I'm not going to tell you who, but you'll probably figure it out, is an avid other side, the irony supporter. And when I first saw his post on that, I was like, oh, like I kind of knew, but I didn't want to know. And honestly, that's the best thing, because he's not defined by that. You're not defined by that. I'm not defined by that. It does speak to our BS, our belief systems, but is it possible to still love someone? And I think that for me on this topic, we've lost our ability to be compassionate and empathetic and understand. Well, I'm going to take understanding out of the equation, because I can't understand why someone would support him, but I can still have enough compassion and empathy to know that not everyone is going to think like I am, and they're looking at something maybe I don't see. I can't imagine it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that I don't care about that person anymore. And
Yeah,
we used to be able to do that. We used to be able to agree to disagree.
yeah, we
And
need
then
yeah.
we can't do it's like boom, you ghost them, boom, you unfollow them, boom, you unfriend them, and it's like
Cancel.
you're an idiot.
Yeah. And I think we really need those days where we can agree to not have the same politics and still go to the movies, go out to lunch, go have tea, go have a spa day. It's okay if I don't agree with your politics. I had lots of physician friends who cared more about their taxes than they did about people. And that was fine. We agreed to disagree and we still did surgery together. And it was okay. I don't get why people can't agree to disagree. We need to go back to, the days of empathy, consideration, and we don't all have to be minions and believe the same things. And I also think that we just need to get back to respecting people as individuals. We're the United States of America. I was in the military so that we could all have differing opinions, have differing church beliefs. People can love whoever they want to love, marry whoever they want to marry. We don't have to be minions. We don't have to do the same things, be the same color, and we can be individuals. And so that's why this topic was chosen.
Got it. And it's a great topic. And if you've just tuned in, I see the eyeballs rolling in. You are at Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA, the station that leaves no one behind, AM 1050, FM 106.5, home to the Asian Oprah. And it is Wednesday, which means it's time for Doctors in the House with Dr. Marissa and
Dr. Tiffanie Tate.
And today we're talking about being pathetic or not being pathetic. We are talking about, can we get back to a place where we have compassion, empathy, maybe not understanding, because when you get into a discussion about politics, it's very difficult to actually understand the other person's point of view. But we're here to help ourselves and whoever is interested in getting back to a place where we can actually still agree to disagree. So if you have any questions or comments on that, please do go to my YouTube TV channel that houses all 1,193 podcast shows these 638 consecutive weeks. And that way, you'll get an alert every weekday morning to join us. And you can also stream. If you are driving right now, listening to the AM FM side, please do not chat. Wait till you are landed somewhere. All right. I'm sure you did some research on this as per usual. She's my research co-host. And she consults usually my assistant Google. So what does my assistant say?
All right. So when I looked, I found lots of different information, and we're going to start with that there are 3 forms of apathy. Did you know that?
Nope.
Yes. And so there is executive apathy, emotional apathy, and initiation apathy. So executive apathy is kind of like the lack of motivation for planning, organizing, and attention. Emotional apathy is indifference, neutrality, or flatness or blunting. And then there's the initiation apathy, which is the lack of motivation for self generation or thought or action. So when you decide you don't want to really get involved or do anything, when you're just thinking about, okay, I could care less, and you just really don't want to think about or you're indifferent to something, and then you just don't want to plan or be involved. And then I was like, okay,
Can you give me an example of that?
Of which one? The
First one. Let's go with the first one. Oh, there we go. We've got. I was just about to.
Tiffanie.
I was just about to put that in the chat. Thank you for doing that for me. She's my assistant today.
Yes.
Welcome to Z, the queen. And she's summarized beautifully the 3 types of apathy. That's what we're talking about today. Not being pathetic, but being apathetic, and how we can move away from being apathetic. So give me an example of executive apathy.
And so, say for instance, if you are asked to get involved and people want you to participate, and they say, "Hey, Dr. Marissa, can you help me?
No.
Can you help me plan something?" And they want you to organize it, and then you say yes, but then you just don't do it.
Okay. So it's a fake yes.
Yes, it's a fake yes.
And then emotional apathy, I don't care. You pretend to care, you don't care. Really, you don't care. But maybe you just went through sexual harassment training or valuing diversity at work, and so you pretend to care. Got it.
Yes. Yes.
And
Or you don't even pretend to care. Remember maybe last week how I said sometimes I'm just like emotionally shut down. You may not even pretend. You're like stone face, could care less. You don't even pretend. You walk in the room and you have the ability to read the room, and people can read that you don't care. People can read you very well.
Yeah, I've been told that.
Yes. That's when you are shut down and people know you're shut down. And the initiation apathy is the lack of motivation of the thought of action. And so people know that you are not a team player. And so they don't even come to you. They're like, "Oh, don't come to Dr. Marissa or Dr. Tiffanie. They're just not going to participate at all. Don't give her a task. She's no go." So they know those winds don't spill. They know that dog.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, and before I forget, it's interesting. After you chose the topic, I went to a Chinese food restaurant, and in my fortune cookie, which there were 3 of us, my bonus mom and dad, 91 and 94, and my Chinese dad, who's in heaven, as a way of teaching me patience, would never let me take the fortune. I always had to take the one that was left. Now, I'm still not, I don't have patience in my vocabulary, no P word, but I still do the practice. So I say this to say, I didn't pick this out, but it came to me, and it says, compassion will cure more than condemnation. So 1, it's talking about compassion, and 2, it's talking about doctors, right? Cure, and it's doctors in the house. So I thought that was very clever of my UPS man, my universal power source, who I call my name for God, is delivering a fortune cooking to support our topic today.
See? Confirmation is what that is.
It is validation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I thought it was interesting because I was thinking, okay, well, I remember last time we talked about genetics versus environment. And I took it a step further and said, okay, so what personality traits are passed down genetically? Because sometimes there can be a small genetic component, but a lot of times when you look at twin studies and when they're separated by, say, adoption, where one twin is in one environment and one twin is in a different environment, you see different things. So I found that there are 5 traits that make up personality and are influenced by genetics. And they found that it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, which I thought was interesting. And it says this is sometimes referred to by the acronym OCEAN.
Ocean.
OCEAN, ocean, for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And it says most of these characteristics you might use to describe your own personality, and they can fall under different different headings. So
That's
you,
very interesting.
yeah, you can kind of play with it. It's not 100%, but depending on your environment, you can kind of tweak it. And
I'm
I
waiting for Z to type it down. If she's not going to do it, I have to do it. Okay.
Okay, so ocean, OCEAN,
All right.
um,
OCEAN. And O
openness,
is
openness.
openness. Ah, well, I'm going to do it this time. We'll take turns. Okay,
Okay,
Z. Openness. Oops. Open. She'll probably do it faster than me.
openness,
Openness. And then C is
conscientiousness,
conscientious. Oh, geez. Conscientious. I don't know if I spelled that right. And then E is empathy.
no,
No.
extroversion.
Oh, extroversion. Okay.
Mhm.
And
A is agreeableness,
A is
agreeableness,
agree. Oh, I can be.
and N is neuroticism, which I thought was
That definitely I am. Neuroticism. That is interesting.
yes.
So there you go. Um,
So that can
see
be
if I
passed
got
down.
that right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I beat you, Z. So you're saying these are
Those traits
qualities of people who are more likely to be compassionate? No,
can be passed down genetically.
compassionate. And I missed that last one.
These are traits that can be passed down genetically.
Oh, genetically. Okay. Well, 88% of the time I'm open, conscientious, extrovert. Actually, I'm a wallflower, very shy. And sarcasm is another service I offer. Agreeable 88% of the time, neurotic 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the traits to be more compassionate and less apathetic. So that's interesting. Now, extroversion, I was told, does not mean, well, I still beat you, Z. Sorry. But she did do
Thank
it.
you.
She wrote it nicer than me. Congratulations to me, I guess. So I was told extroversion because I am certified to administer the Myers-Briggs personality inventory, and people mistake extroversion to be life of the party and introverts to be shy. That's actually not correct. Introversion is you get your energy from being by yourself, and extroverts get their energy from being in a group of people. So I just wanted to clarify that. The older I get, I think I'm more IE instead of high E. But it's it's interesting that they're saying that introverts are less empathetic, or I guess that would make sense because you're less with a lot of people. I don't know. But I also believe that most introverts have higher levels of sensitivity because they're aware. So I don't know. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And another thing they said sometimes, well, we know that when you have a B vitamin deficiency, sometimes you can have mental changes. So they recommend that you take B12 sometimes, because that can also make you a little bit irritated and agitated. So if you're suffering from irritation and agitation, you may want to supplement with B12 and see if your mood changes. I thought that was pretty interesting. I
Yeah.
know you work with like paresthesias and numbness and tingling, but I didn't think about irritation and agitation as a B12 deficiency. So I thought that that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think that looking at the way the medical field that you're in, I'm more in the head field as a PhD. But the way that medical science is now very clear about the mind, body, emotion, physical connection than it used to be, right? If there was, if you were feeling stressed or feeling, and 85% of all doctors' visits result in a diagnosis of stress.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
that interesting? That stress does affect the way your cells work. And so here's another argument or advocation to be more compassionate, because when you are more compassionate and caring, opposite of apathy, then your cells will work better and you'll have a better immune system. You will get sick less. My own personal, the more positive that I have chosen to be in the last, I've only been sick one time and I have not had COVID yet. And I attribute that to one, law of attraction. I'm constantly choosing the best feeling thought. And then two, I do take, vitamins in the morning and do all that other stuff. But I absolutely am thrilled that medical science is now agreeing that we can affect our health with our minds and emotions. Sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely. It says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." And I think positivity goes a long, long way. And we really need positive thoughts. And we really need to have more consideration for other people when we interact with them. And consideration goes a long, long way. And a lot of times we live in a me society, and it doesn't take much to have more empathy and say, how would I feel if I was in another person's shoes? We don't do that very often. It's all about me, the selfie society. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do need to take pause and consider other people a tad bit more.
Yeah.
And that's why this topic was picked, because I think we need to have more values and encompass a little bit more love for one another. And I believe that song said, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love."
Sweet love.
It's the only thing that there's
It's
just
the
too little.
only thing. Come on, you can sing it too.
There's too little love. What the world needs
It's
now
now.
is love, sweet
Sweet
love.
love.
No,
That was
not
pretty good.
love, but for everyone. And we,
Yay.
yeah.
We're we're going to come right back, take a quick break. And when we come back, Dr. Tiffany is going to tell us about her latest book and how to get it. But thanks for tuning in. This is Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. The morning show. We'll be right back in 2 and 2. Peace in, peace out. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And Dr. Tiffanie, tell us about your latest book.
My latest book is Little Engine Mia Sings, and you can pick it up on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. And it is a book about a little engine named Mia who gets bullied on the playground by Bruce. So it is also available as an audiobook. You will love it.
Book everywhere. So if you're looking, this is the season for kids. They're out. When you have extra time with them, you can go through those books that she has for them. And she has a website that you can go to as well. Very easy. Use my assistant Google. Go Dr. Tiffanie with an I-E, Tate, and you'll find her website. All right, and we're back. This is Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind, AM 1050, FM 106.5. Number one talk in the IE, as thanks to Asian Oprah is the name that was given to me when I was introduced to Oprah. And I'm so happy to be here on our very special Wednesday series called Doctors in the House with myself and
Dr. Tiffanie Tate.
And we're talking about apathy, empathy, and how not pathetic we are. We are looking at practical ways to become more compassionate, more empathetic, like we used to be before the divisions that the politics seem to really thrive on these days, and myself included, to try to get back to that place where we can agree to disagree. So Dr. Tiffanie has given us some great concepts that we have recorded thanks to my fabulous assistant this morning. We're looking at ocean. These are qualities. How do you rate in the scale? Are you an open person, conscientious, extroverted, agreeable, and a little neurotic? Did you find a little more on that one? Why did they say neurotic was related to compassion?
No, it was just something that they felt was existed. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I guess I'll take a stab as and relate it to what you were saying around, you know, how we can be selfish but not selfish, empathetic, not empathetic. Think about being in another person's shoes, or as one of my past guests who was a brilliant educator in diversity, and I'm going to forget her, but she talks about walking in people's moccasins. She was the third grade teacher that introduced the collars, and it's called Class Divided. Jane Elliott, who, if you haven't seen, I'm going to replay some of her interviews. Actually, I should get a hold of her. She was on Red Table Talk. She's been on a lot of talk shows, but her concepts around no one's really white. The globe is tainted or warped because it makes North America look bigger than it actually is if you do it on scale. So a lot of different things that she teaches that are just mind-blowing. But the walking in moccasins is the balance we're talking about. So if I look at me and you, see if I can put this here, and extreme apathy is I really don't care about you, and in order to please me, you have to come all the way to me. And that is a selfish, apathetic, non-compassionate, which is kind of what we're doing now. If you are not the party that I agree with, if you're supporting someone else, you know, you're an idiot, and I'm gonna unfriend, unfollow, and speak badly about you if I speak about you at all. And we're not saying that the person needs to go all the way to the other side and say, I love your politics. I love what you think. And I understand all that you're saying, because it's really not realistic. It is being able to say, I don't understand, but I can come here. If we're willing to maybe not talk about it because we can't change each other's mind, and that person go, yes, we can agree to disagree and maybe not talk about it at all, which is what we do on this show, then we're allowed to see each other in the fullness of who we are without the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, another thing I found was ways to regain your empathy if you believe you lost it. And there were 6 steps about how to practice empathy or regain it. And it says you can become curious about people you don't know. And so empathetic people are people who are curious about people and those around them. And so you can ask questions and get to know them as opposed to making assumptions, kind of like what you just said. Instead of doing, this coming all the way here, how about try to meet in the middle, like you just said? Being more conscientious instead of presumptive. And I think having open communication. Go back to one of our other episodes about communication, rewatching those and being a little bit more understanding. I think understanding is key and essential, and we need communication, and we need love, and we need compassion. 2 was focus on similarities rather than differences. We're all humans. We all bleed. We all breathe air. Uh, those are some basic communication, and those are some basic similarities. So, number 3, like we said before, put yourself in someone else's shoes. Try to find basic things that you have in common. You don't need to agree on everything. Just like in your relationship, you don't have to have everything in common. Find similarities, simple things. 4, listen, but also share.
What?
Listen, but also share. Do you both have pets? You might have a cat, the other person might have a dog, you might have a squirrel, you might have a rabbit, whatever you have, you might like to fish, they might like to hunt. You might have some similarities. You might play golf, you might like basketball, baseball. Men might like sports, women might like spa days. You might have something that you have in common. Um, Connect with social action movements. Whatever you like, non-politics. Um, Figure out something.
Bipartisan is one of my favorite words. I love when things say bipartisan. That's a great example of how you can try to improve something without politics, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Most people care about children. Yeah, there are other things that you can focus on other than politics and get creative with it. Maybe you like sip and paint. Women like wine, women like painting. If you don't drink alcohol, maybe you like art. There are other things that you might like to do. So I think it's important to find other common ground. If it's at work, figure out something that you like to talk about other than work. Most people don't want to talk about work at
Right.
work. If it's social, if it's in your neighborhood, if it's with your neighbors, figure out something else to talk about. Talk about neighborhood improvement activities. Talk about your children. Talk about your pets. There are different things that you can do. Talk about your hair. Talk about clothes. Talk about shopping. There's so many other things to talk about. Talk about TV, talk about Netflix, talk about Hulu, talk about shows. There are so
Just
many
don't
things.
talk about the K word.
Yeah.
Don't
I don't think he's on anymore. So there's so many other things, or her either. There's so many things you can talk about right now to entertain yourselves and to bond with someone that you can make a connection. And when you look for things to share with someone, you would be so surprised go bowling, go out, do an activity, play miniature golf. There are ways to connect with people that you have yet to explore.
Absolutely. I wanted to just give a great example, which I love to do. I don't like talking about problems without highlighting. People are into solution. I love this. I heard about it, I think, a year ago. The Human Library Organization, Unjudge Someone. This is I think it was started in Scandinavia. I may be wrong, but I do know. Let's see, yes, I'm right. Copenhagen, Denmark. So if you have a little time, instead of talking about the divisions between the political parties now, you can say, I just heard about this human library where they have people instead of books who know different things and are representative of the differences. And this is not coming up very easily now, but it is a way that people can discover differences about each other in a curious way, not in a judgmental way, but actually without traveling. So I think it's a wonderful example of what we're talking about today. So have you heard about this, the Human Library?
No.
No. Isn't that cool, though? The idea of that you're going to the library, not to read a book about a culture, but to actually meet someone from that culture. Is that cool, or is that cool? Isn't that cool? Yeah. I totally forgot about this until you were talking about it. So it's a nonprofit. You can get involved. So there's lots of news about it. It's talking about these kinds of things that is going to bring back our ability to agree to disagree. Because as long as we're focused on our differences, as Dr. Tiffanie just said, and judging those differences, we're not going to be able to agree to disagree. So there's my little contribution. So we're coming up on the final word for this topic. It's been great. Let's see if Z's still here. We still have eyeballs in our cashew gallery, as I like to call it, instead of a peanut gallery. I'll ask the cashew gallery, what's something in this? I call it keepers. When I do consulting for organizations as a business psychologist, I ask all of my participants, what's the one thing that you want to keep with you that you don't want to forget about the session? And I'll just apply it to the show. This particular episode of Doctors in the House, where we're talking about empathy and compassion, what's that one thing that you don't want to forget? And that is, you can put that in the chat and we'll put it up. Dr. Tiffanie, I'll have you answer that. What is your one keeper about this particular topic?
I want to go with the quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I think it's important to remember to show that you care.
People don't care about how much you know. ... People finish it for me.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Until they know how much you care. Beautiful. All right. Let's see. So I just put that up there. That's brilliant. I love it. And we care. Aw, Dr. Tiffanie, what about me? And she's a mixture of all of these. So fabulous. My final word, or my keeper, is knowing, and Dr. Deepak Chopra said this, that to care is actually good for our health. To be empathetic is actually good for our health. To be creative is good for our health. He has medical research that shows the two emotions that will cause our cells to be jumbled up and not work well and affect our immune system negatively are anger and hostility. And the three emotions that will have our immune system tip-top shape and our cells working in harmony is, yes, love, peace, and the one that was surprising was the one you just brought up, creativity. So it's organizations like the Human Library, it's discussions like this where we can talk about how we can be creative. Dr. Tiffanie gave you a whole slew of ways that we can interact with each other and find the common, find the similar, find things that are fun to talk about together instead of getting into arguments about how we're different. And that's it for today's scintillating episode of Doctors in the House. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Tiffanie helped me with the sign out. It's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. Yeah. World peace through inner peace. Thanks for joining us. Tomorrow it is Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and guest co-host Ranella Ferrer. You've seen her before, and she is my bulldog. She has Frenchies, but I told her yesterday she should have a bulldog because she wants to talk about my dating life again. She is consistently forcing me to date. So she wants to do an update show tomorrow. That should be interesting. So come back tomorrow at 9. Friday is the Hollywood Rebel Report. Thanks for joining us, joining me. Now go and have the best day ever. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Dr. Tiffanie Tate, as usual, for all of the great research and information.